I first started learning English, I didn't believe it was possible to become fluent in such a short time. 2 months seemed impossible, right? But the more I learned, the more I realized that it's not about magic or luck. It's about strategy, consistency, and a little bit of creativity. If you focus on the right things, 2 months can actually be enough to make huge progress. Let me walk you through the steps I followed and explain how you can do the same to become fluent in just 2 months. First things first, set clear goals. I knew from the beginning that I didn't just want to learn English. I wanted to speak it fluently, like a native speaker. The goal was clear, but it had to be realistic. Fluency doesn't mean perfection. It means confidence in communicating and being able to understand and express yourself easily. Once I had this goal in mind, everything else started falling into place. Now, the second step was all about immersion. You see, fluency comes from being constantly exposed to the language. It's like learning how to swim by being in the water, not by reading a book about swimming. So, I made English a part of my daily life. I watched English movies, listened to English podcasts, and followed social media pages in English. The goal wasn't just to watch passively, but to actively engage with the content. I started noticing patterns, new vocabulary, and phrases I could use in my own conversations. I also changed the language on my phone and social media accounts to English. This may seem small, but it had a huge impact on my learning. Every time I opened my phone, I was seeing English. Every message I sent, every app I opened was in English. This constant exposure helped me get used to the language faster. Let's talk about something really important here: active practice. Listening is great, but without speaking, your progress will slow down. And here's the thing: you don't need a perfect environment or perfect conditions to speak English. When I started, I practiced speaking whenever I could. I spoke to myself, I recorded myself, and I even practiced with friends who were also learning English. Even though it felt uncomfortable at first, I didn't worry about making mistakes. I just spoke. Mistakes? They are part of the process. Every time I made a mistake, I corrected myself, and over time, I started noticing fewer mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how you learn. Another key thing is focus on vocabulary. In 2 months, you can learn a lot of words, but it's not about memorizing a long list. It's about learning words and phrases you will actually use in real life. If you can use new words in conversations, you'll remember them much better than if you just memorize them from a dictionary. When I learned new words, I didn't just add them to a list. I created sentences. I used those words in context. For example, if I learned a word like delicious, I didn't just memorize it. I practiced saying, "This pizza is delicious," or "The cake tastes delicious." This way, the word stuck in my memory better. You know, learning grammar is important, but I didn't spend 2 months memorizing grammar rules. Instead, I focused on communicating clearly. English grammar is something that will come naturally over time as you practice, so don't stress too much about it in the beginning. For me, speaking came first. If I made a mistake with grammar, I didn't worry. I just kept speaking and practicing. Now, let's talk about listening comprehension. Listening is one of the most important skills to develop if you want to sound like a native speaker. You might have heard this before, but it's true. The more you listen, the better you get at understanding English. When I first started, I couldn't understand everything people were saying. But the more I listened to podcasts, watched movies, or even listened to conversations around me, the more familiar the language became. Start small. Listen to podcasts or watch TV shows with subtitles. Then, once you feel more comfortable, try watching or listening without subtitles. This will help you get used to different accents and speaking speeds. It's normal to not understand everything at first, but keep listening. Over time, you'll notice that things start making more sense. And don't forget about reading. Reading in English not only helps you with vocabulary, but it also improves your understanding of sentence structure. I started reading simple books, articles, or even social media posts in English. The more you read, the more you will see common words and phrases. Soon, you won't even have to think about them anymore. They'll just come to you naturally. Here's another tip. Spend time with people who speak English. Whether it's online or in person, the more you speak with others, the faster you'll improve. I found a language partner who was also learning English, and we spoke every day for at least 30 minutes. Sometimes we made mistakes, but that didn't matter. The more we spoke, the better we got. If you don't have anyone to speak with, try finding language exchange partners online. There are plenty of platforms where you can meet people who are willing to help you practice. Also, don't just rely on books or apps. While apps and textbooks are helpful, they can't replace real conversations. Real conversations help you develop your speaking skills in a way that apps or books can't. The more you engage with people, the more natural your English will become. You'll start thinking in English, and that's when you know you're making real progress. Let's talk about another point. Stay consistent. You can't expect to become fluent in English in just 2 months if you study for just 10 minutes a day. You have to be consistent and dedicate time every day to learning. Even if you only have 30 minutes to spare, use that time wisely. Listen to an English podcast while doing something else, or practice speaking with a friend or a language partner. Every bit of practice counts. Another mistake I made at the beginning was trying to learn too many things at once. I thought I needed to learn everything, every word, every rule, every grammar point, all at once. But that's not effective. You don't need to know everything about English to be fluent. Instead, focus on the things that will help you communicate the most, like basic conversation skills, common vocabulary, and simple sentence structures. Start small and build up from there. You don't need to speak perfectly. You just need to speak clearly and confidently. The key to learning a language quickly is to immerse yourself completely. You don't have to live in an English-speaking country to do this. You can create your own immersion environment at home. I did this by surrounding myself with English content and speaking whenever I could. Over time, English became the default language in my mind. And that's when I started speaking more fluently. At the end of the day, it's all about your mindset. Believe that you can do it. If you have the right mindset and are determined to succeed, you can absolutely become fluent in just 2 months. But remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. Don't compare your progress to others. Compare your current self to where you were at the start of your journey. One of the best things about learning a language is the sense of accomplishment you get when you're able to communicate with others. And in 2 months, you'll be amazed at how far you've come. The key is to be consistent, stay motivated, and keep practicing. It's not easy, but with determination, you'll see incredible progress. So, if you're ready, start today. You have everything you need to become fluent in English in just 2 months. Focus on practicing every day, stay consistent, and immerse yourself in the language. Believe in yourself, and in no time, you'll look back and be amazed at your progress. But I know what you might be thinking right now. It's going to be hard. I've tried before and it didn't work. What if I don't see results? Believe me, I've been there. I've had moments of doubt. But here's the truth. Consistency is the key. It's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something every day, no matter how small. Even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes a day, those small efforts add up over time. And as you build this habit, you'll notice that your skills will improve faster than you think. One thing I found incredibly helpful is tracking my progress. At the start, it's easy to feel discouraged because the progress isn't obvious right away. But when I started writing down what I was learning each day, it was easier to see how far I had come. I kept a simple journal where I wrote down new words, phrases, or grammar points that I had learned. It might sound simple, but it's one of the most motivating things I did. It gave me a visual reminder of my progress. When you see how much you've learned, it pushes you to keep going. Another tip that helped me stay consistent was rewarding myself. After a week of consistent practice, I treated myself to something I enjoyed, like watching a movie in English, or spending some time with friends. This helped me stay motivated because I wasn't just focusing on the end result, I was enjoying the process along the way. Remember, learning doesn't have to feel like a chore. It can be fun if you approach it in a way that makes you excited. When you're practicing every day, don't focus on the mistakes. Don't focus on the things that went wrong. Celebrate the small victories. If you learned a new word, or if you managed to have a short conversation in English, even if it was only for a few minutes, that's something to be proud of. It's easy to focus on what you haven't mastered yet, but remember, fluency isn't about perfection. It's about communication. So, keep pushing yourself, buddy. You'll be fluent. Subscribe.